Declaration of Martial Law, the night of declaration. On the night of September 23, 1972, Ferdinand Marcos spoke to the nation by television and by radio to make it known that he had declared martial law in the Philippines. Specifically, Marcos cited a sizable communist force that had to obtain weapons from China that sought to overthrow the government and violate the peaceful lives of ordinary Filipinos. Marcos even compared the current state of the nation to a war, one which he intended to put a stop to. In response, Marcos declared that he would place the Philippines under a state of martial law, as according to the president's powers described in the 1935 Philippine Constitution. Such powers included the command over the armed forces of the Philippines to maintain law and order, as well as exclusive decision-making. Furthermore, Marcos promised that he would use the special powers he was given in martial law to lead reforms that would lead the Philippines to prosperity and peace. Those who did not oppose his vision would live to see it to come to fruition. On the other hand, those who dared to offend his rule would suffer just as any rebel would. Though the announcement was made on September 23, the actual document had been signed is September 21, 1972, due to a special superstition of Marcos that about the numbers.
Proclamation number 1102, announcing the ratification by the Filipino people of the Constitution proposed by the 1971 Constitutional Convention. Citizens' assemblies were created in barrios, in municipalities, and in districts, wards, in chartered cities pursuant to the Presidential Decree number 86, dated December 31, 1972, composed of all persons who are residents of the barrio, district, or ward for at least 6 months, 15 years of age or over. Citizens of the Philippines and who are registered in the list of citizen assembly members kept by the barrio district or ward secretary. The said citizens' assemblies were established precisely to broaden the base of citizens' participation in a democratic process and to afford ample opportunity for the citizenry to express their views on important national issues. There are 14,976,561 members of all the barangays or citizens' assemblies voted for the adoption of proposed constitution, while there are 743,869 who voted for its rejection. While on the question as to whether or not the people should still like a plebiscite to be called to ratify the new constitution, 14,298,814 answered that there was no need for a plebiscite and that the vote of the barangays, citizens' assemblies, should be considered as a vote in a plebiscite.
In the continuation, People Power Revolution, or also known as the EDSA Revolution or the February Revolution, was a series of popular demonstrations in the Philippines, mostly in Metro Manila from February 22 to 25, 1986. There was a sustained campaign of civil resistance against regime violence and electoral fraud. The nonviolent revolution led to the departure of Ferdinand Marcos, the end of his 20-year dictatorship, and the restoration of democracy in the Philippines. During those momentous 4 days of February 1986, millions of Filipinos along Epifanio de los Santos Avenue, or what we call EDSA, in Metro Manila, and in cities all over the country showed exemplary courage and stood against and peacefully overthrew the dictatorial regime of President Ferdinand A. Marcos. So, more than a defiant show of unity markedly against a totalitarian rule that lead time and again proven that it would readily use brute force against any and all dissenters. People power was a reclaiming of liberties long denied. The millions that gathered for the 1986 People Power Revolution, the culmination of a series of public protests, often dispersed if all at all given leave, was a nation wresting itself as one back from a dictator. The 4-day demonstration along EDSA was a manifestation of the discontent and furies that began with the parliament of the streets during Marcos' totalitarian rule, as Filipinos began determinedly to shake off the subjugation. But the players of this revolution at the start knew only to gather only in EDSA, the height of the marches, and within the multitude of citizens did standing as one begin to calls as a campaign from its beginners as an immediate response to the rich results of the snap elections, and then as a vigil to guard defecting top military men from Marcos' vengeful machinations. A show of support heartily encouraged by the Catholic Church, the street gradually teeming with people to quietly face off with armored tanks. A confrontation of linked arms and prayers and flowers and songs. The 4 days of EDSA People Power in itself was an exemplar of the evolution of the Philippine protest. So that's would be all. Hopefully you learned from our report. Thank you and God bless.